Hi everyone, Mr. Short here. So I'm going to show you a bit of animation using pixels today to make your movies or games way more interesting and customized. Now there are a few professional programs, some free, some do cost, where you can create pixel art and pixel animation. But Scratch actually comes with its own small area to do that too. So let me show you how I do that. It's going to involve using costumes, and so I'm not going to really make a game at the moment. I'll give us a background just so it doesn't look so dull. There we go. I'm going to get rid of Scratch, and I'm going to add my own custom sprite. So we go down here, choose a sprite, we go paint, and we start with the costume. So I'm going to create a tank, and I'm going to make the tank fire. Of course, you don't have to do a tank, it could be anything else. I'm just going to make my tank fire. So let's choose a color for it. There we go. Take a square. This is going to be a very simple looking tank. Alright, let's give it a top. There we go. And let's give it a barrel. Yeah, let's give it a barrel. Where do I go? Let's use a dark color for that. Alright, there we go. We got a barrel. Now the tank is a bit on the big side, especially for such a small screen. So let's down the size to 50. That's good. There we go. We got a tank. And also what I want to do under code, just for making testing easier, is, as you know, when you make things move or things happen in your game, you have to add code to reset it all the way you'd like at the start. Otherwise, the next time you try test your game, things are a little crazy on the screen. For example, if I make my tank move a little bit and then shoot in my video, he's going to stay there unless I add code that makes him start at the beginning each time. So let's just do that quick so I don't forget. Let's say when clicked, motion, go to X and Y. And remember, the X and Y numbers match wherever your sprite is. So these numbers that are in here now refer to where this tank is right now. And you'll notice if I move the tank, let's just zoom in a bit here. If I move the tank a bit, the numbers have changed. Okay, so those numbers are perfect the way they are. So I drag that over, go to X, go to Y. So every time I restart the game, that's where he appears. We'll have to add another command as well under looks later on that also resets what he looks like, because if he fires now and I add a whole bunch of pretty pixel graphics for him to shoot, those animations are also going to stay hanging in the air, and we don't want that obviously at the start before he has fired. So we'll do that a little later. Let's go back to costumes. So we've got our tank. Now what do? Now the last thing you want to do is paint the whole thing every single time. So luckily Scratch has a way for us to duplicate our costume. So I take my mouse over my little tank costume up here. He's called costume 1. Right click, duplicate. But I only do it once because I need to edit the next one now. Alright? The next costume is going to start the process of shooting his cannon. So I'm going to give it sort of a sciencey fiction feel by having a light start to appear at the end of the barrel, indicating he's about to shoot. So let's choose a nice bright color like yellow for sparks. And then I'm going to choose the line. Oh wait, for the line button we use this one, sorry. And let's try find something that looks bright. I really do want the yellow. There we go, we got yellow. So remember, for the line one, you use this guy. It says outline, that's how you change the color here. Not this one. The fill is for when you do things like big shapes that you want fill, the square or the circle. So take a peek. What I'm going to do is draw some very small yellow lines. Okay, so he's getting ready. He's charging his cannon. Now, I'm going to duplicate this costume. Right click, duplicate. Now the next costume 3 has those sparks, but I'm going to make those sparks bigger. Also, I'm going to zoom in so I can see a bit better here. So don't forget about the zoom button to help you. Let's make the sparks a little longer. Getting ready to fire. Excellent. Right click again, duplicate. So now we've got costume 4. So what's going to be the difference with costume 4? We can't keep making the sparks get bigger and bigger. So I'm going to introduce a new special effect. Now we actually need the fill button because I'm going to switch to the circle and take a look. I'm going to start with a tiny little glowing orb. Right click, duplicate. Now the orb gets a little bigger. Right click, duplicate. Now the orb gets a little bigger. Right click, duplicate. Even bigger. And now I'm going to fire it. So on the next one, duplicate. We're going to zoom out a bit. And we're going to make a beam come out of the front. So I'm going to use the square. And I'm going to draw a beam coming out like that. Boom. Now you'll notice there's a slight outline if I zoom in, and that's because for the line button I was using earlier for the sparks, it's kind of a different yellow. It's kind of a mustardy yellow. So I want to get rid of this bit of the square inside the circle. It looks ugly. So I go to the circle button, the fill button, using the nice yellow. And I'm just going to draw a little one here just to... Oh, shucks. I guess we have to use the paintbrush. That's not working either. So let's use the paintbrush. There we go. Done. Now if I go back to code, remember I said that we want our tank to not only reset his position every time we start the game again, or the movie, we also want the animations to disappear, obviously, so that we can see it happen each time. So how do I reset his animations? Well, if you go back to costumes, remember they all have different names. Costume 1, 2, 3, up to 8. Costume 1, the first costume, is the one where there are no animations by the barrel. So that's the one we want to reset the tank to. That's the costume we want. So I've added a when clicked. I'm not actually going to add a second one. I'm going to use this one for both resetting its position, which we've got here with the blue code under motion, go to X and Y. And I'm going to add under looks, the purple bubble, switch costume. And I'm going to change that to costume 1. There we go. That means every time we test the game and start over, he goes back to the correct position and he goes back to costume 1. Now, let's do 2 things to make this happen so we can see it in action. We need to make him maybe rumble a little forward. Our tank can move forward a bit. And then he fires. And that's when we switch the costumes. So let's add another when clicked here. This one's going to be for the moving and the animation. Let's make him move, say, 100 steps or 150 steps forward. So we say, let's say glide. And there's our glide command. And remember what I said? Those numbers match where our tank is. So if I had to put this in here right now, he wouldn't move anywhere because these numbers for X and Y, glide to X and Y, is where he's standing. So he's not going to go anywhere. So I have to do this. Move my tank forward to say I want him to glide to there. Now the numbers have changed and they match where he is. So I say glide there. And I'll make that 2 seconds. He's a slow tank. Take his time getting there. Remember, for the seconds, you're telling Scratch how long do you want it to take for this to happen. So the higher the number, the slower he will move. The shorter the number, the lower the number, the less time he has, so he has to go faster. So he's going to glide. Then we're going to add a wait command as he stops and gets ready to shoot. And then we start switching costumes like this. So I go back to looks and I go to switch costume. And I add one more wait command, well, quite a few actually. I add a wait command between each costume we want it to flip to. So there's costume 2 as he starts to change and shows the sparks. And I'm going to give him about 0.4 seconds. You can play around with it though and change that. Between each costume change. If I don't do this, you won't really get to see the animation. It'll happen so fast. So this allows us to see the animation happening. Now the last thing you want to do is keep adding and adding and adding and adding. So remember, I taught you folks how to duplicate. So what I'll do is I'll drag this away, duplicate. Now I can duplicate that whole thing. Now I can duplicate, right-click that whole thing. And that should definitely be enough. If it ends up being too much, we can just remove a few. So there's costume 2, costume 3, costume 4. Remember all those costumes we made and they each had their own number? So that's what we're doing. We're making it switch each costume. Costume 5, costume 6, costume 7, and finally costume 8, which means we don't need this last bit of code because we've run out of costumes. If I remember right, there were 8. Let's see. Costume 8 is the last one. Excellent. Now we just need to test it. Let's see. Let's make it big. Hold on a sec. Why didn't he move? Ah. You'll notice he's not moving even though I've added the glide command. It's because I made an oopsie. The glide command doesn't match where I want him to be. So let's just get rid of that glide command. The glide command's actually got the same numbers as this one, X and Y, at the start position. That's why he's not moving. So I've put him there to say I want him to go there. Glide. Make that 2 seconds. Right, let's test that quick. There we go. He rumbles forward. He stops. There comes the animation. Boom.